very important question here. What is your distinction between repressing an emotion, whether that's anger or desire, right? And by desire, we can call it sexual desire, or we can call it the desire to obtain something.
Yes.
Versus expression of the emotion and the importance of expression. Because as you were describing earlier, we should not express every emotion endlessly.
That's right.
But there's a tremendous danger, and a lot of your father's work and your work is about the danger of repressed emotions.
Yes.
And how that can develop neuroticism and incomplete self and all of this. So how do you not repress an emotion, but also when it's not appropriate to fully express the emotion, what does one do?
Well, I think the whole idea of containment, I don't want people to necessarily just always walk around containing their emotions, because I think that might be sort of, maybe as you're saying it, sort of a lower level of repression, so that it's always going to be in the back of their mind. But I think most people need to learn how to be aware of the feeling, how to talk about it in a constructive way, and also come up with constructive ways to solve the problem that they are angry about. And there is something, I mean, therapy, most of us therapists will say, well, the only person you can really change is yourself. And that is true, but we can also learn how to communicate better with our spouse, with people that are under us, that work for us or work with us. We can't guarantee they're going to change, but we can be very clear when we're saying, a lot of times we'll teach people I statements. So we're not saying, well, you always or you never do this, because that just sets up people to be defensive themselves. But we take responsibility for what's going on inside of me, and then looking at, what is it that I want differently? What am I willing to do about that? And I will practice that. So that, I don't think, is more containment. It's more trying to look at, how do I resolve this so that I don't have to be angry all the time, right? Now, I can't guarantee that, but at least I have a more effective way of going about it. Repression is when the person really doesn't want to, either because of fear, or they just, sometimes people have a different disposition and they just they're not going to have anything to do with certain feelings. And so that's a different approach, where we have to convince the person they sort of want to rise above their feelings. And that's a different type of repression. And so we have to convince them that their emotions should not be treated that way, but be part of the whole sort of family of feelings. Just like physical feelings need to always be considered, but not always indulged. So that we have to sort of work on people to help them realize that the emotions give us a breadth and that when we can bring in or be aware of and allow all our emotions and feelings to be, we actually can live more effortlessly. You know, when people have, for example, maybe a more common example that people would understand is eating disorders, where there's a rejection and a repression of the natural desire to eat because of this sort of a delusional thought that I'm fat, right? And they do it in different ways. Well, no one, and this sort of relates to what we were talking about before, you know, how the culture sees emotions. No good therapist is going to say, oh, I'll help you with that, right? And you must be right because that's how you feel. We want the person to come to look at, yes, you have to start looking at, what is it like right now? It's difficult for you to want to eat because you've denied that, you've repressed that, and some of them don't have any awareness of being hungry at all. So we have to correct that so that it's resolved, and eventually the person can get back to actually having even the feeling of desire for food, which is normal, right? That is our nature. And so it's the same thing with all physical feelings and all emotions. And one of the things we often say, which is also in one of my dad's books, is every emotion is a feeling, a physical feeling, but not every physical feeling is an emotion, right? So being hungry or thirsty or tired is not an emotion, but it is good. Even if it doesn't feel good to me, it is something that really helps me. Because if let's say I repressed, or I never learned to feel hungry or thirsty, I'd have to sit here and go, Lila, I think it's been about 24 hours since I drank something. And I don't know how much I'm supposed to drink. I might have to look that up. Well, that's exhausting. And it's the same with the emotions. We want the physical feelings and the emotions to simply be there spontaneously, and that we learn how to evaluate what that's about and what should I do about it, if anything. And all of that also, what comes into play is I learn how to live with other people in society, because sometimes I have to restrain the desires I have for something, right? Whether it's an object of pleasure, whether it's a sexual attraction, because there my reason is guiding, like, well, that person's married, or that person is not available, or I'm not available, or I've made these promises, or this wouldn't be proper, right? So I actually, really, we could say that the love that is self-restraining is the highest kind of love. That is what Christ did on the cross for us, right? So I may have all my feelings, but sometimes I'm going to restrain the expression of them for the good of the other person.
But there's still the acknowledgement, to your point. So it's not considered restraining one's feelings repressed. Is not repression. That's because there's an acknowledgement and largely speaking, an allowance for it. I think it's almost like
I may feel it.
You have a bank allowance, for how much, a financial allowance effectively for your own emotions. Say, I'm going to let myself do this within the order of my relationships, my obligations, my responsibilities.
That's right. Exactly.
And if it's not working out, I keep hitting, like the person with anger problems as an example, and they just keep hitting. At what point do you trigger, okay, there's more work needs to be done? This isn't just a daily management question of blow off some steam, go on a walk, write the letter, maybe change the dynamic in the conversation with your kids, or how you're handling discipline, or how you're handling, education. Instead, you actually have a deeper issue here.
Yes.
And this gets into childhood.
Yes.
And dealing with deeper potential issues, or maybe it could be a nature issue too. Nature, not nurture.
Yeah, that the person just has more of a temperament to be angry.
How do you balance that? Or how do you, when you're working with someone and they're dealing with, we're on the anger of topic, we could do fear as another one, a phobia, but we're dealing with, or we could do shame, pathological guilt or scrupulosity.
Yeah.
When do you identify, oh, this is more than just identification of the emotion and kind of management throughout the day and throughout relationships, and this is something deeper that needs some sort of a deeper therapy or a deeper healing?
I think we're always looking for that. I'm not just listening for, this is what the person is presenting to me, but I have not preconceived notions, but I have ideas about where, in this case, given what the person is telling me, what there might be roots that I need to explore with them. Because if we don't pull up the roots, the person is going to be left with this way of living or their behaviors. And if we can get at that, sometimes we're, as Catholic therapists and Christian therapists as well, I think we're asking the Holy Spirit as we work with them, like, show us, Lord, what we need to see, and show this person what they need to know about themselves when it's the right time. So we are looking for what the roots of that anger could be. Maybe it's, a very bad childhood that they had. And then we want to explore, what was that like for you? Tell me more about, because it sounds very painful. And that's where we're helping to affirm what we hear the person saying. And what I've heard over many years, but especially the last probably 5 to 10 years, what I've noticed, this is coming back to the topic of affirmation, is that when we are really listening to people and we're really present, what people have come back and said to us is, and it's not just with us, it may be with other people in their lives, I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel known, I feel understood, I feel respected, I feel cared for. And that also will tell me that they have not gotten that before. And so I hear what the wound is about, and that can bring about shame, because a lot of times things that don't happen or that maybe the parent is very well-meaning. I've sort of noticed that a lot when I'm listening to people. Is I think most parents are very well-meaning. They're doing the best they can, but somehow the child takes some things as rejection or they're not important, and the parent has no idea about that. And so we want to see if we can explore that and help the person open up to what is that shame about, and see if we can begin to look at where does it come from and how do we begin to alleviate that, which is not an easy matter when it's shame, when it's deeply rooted shame.